Hey, welcome to Brisbane Small Business Show. Today, I've got with me Adam Carter. The reason I've got Adam Carter with me today to talk about the Adaptation Grant that the government announced yesterday is because Adam is one, a really nice guy. Two, he helps clients get grants for a living and has an awesome strike rate. And in doing some work with Adam in the past, found that he really does care about the result for his clients, and that's why I've got. So, Adam, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Kevin. Awesome to be on the show today. Bit of background for myself. Was a CFO in my previous life and been helping a lot of not-for-profits, and that's what led me to helping people with grants and helping small businesses. And I think what you said on your show yesterday, it's all about telling someone's story and telling it well. And I've written a lot of infrastructure planning business cases in the past where they could be 100 pages, and that's telling a massive story. Where today, this new grant which has come out, we've got to tell it in 200 words or less. So we've got to really do it well.
You do get 200 words in one section, but you do get other areas where you can tell your story and be a bit more verbose. And we'll give you different hints as we go along because, and we'll get into the detail-y part of it. But on the high level stuff, so you've helped people with lots of grants and a great variety of different grants, from entrepreneur grants and digital grants and a whole lot of sporting clubs and different social grants.
Correct.
Associated with that. You'd have a more technical name for that, wouldn't you?
Yes, and infrastructure grants as well.
All of that. I've worked mainly with the Advanced Queensland Grants, and this does come up under the Advanced Queensland Grants and the Smarter Grants side of things, which is great. The real beauty of this particular one is it is funding upfront for your service provider, and there is the ability to recoup some of the losses associated with COVID-19. But we were having a discussion earlier on about what do you think the government's really trying to achieve here?
I think at the end of the day, they want business to be more sustainable, more resilient, and like the word adaptable at the end of the day. So how can they adapt under all different circumstances? So during this climate, people have been forced to work from home. How can they get their business online? What software can they use? How can they engage their staff, their customers, their suppliers, etc.? So it's being more resilient and being more sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it really is. I think the heart of this particular grant, if you're just looking to do the same thing coming out of this as you're doing before, you're probably not going to get the grant.
Correct.
If your story doesn't include a process of transformation through the services that you're getting, that your chances are lower. Not saying you won't get it, but your chances are lower. The more your industry has been impacted, the more likely you are to get the grant. Okay, so there's going to be a point system, and you've got to qualify on A, B, C, D. If you don't get 200 points or whatever number they come up with, then you don't get it. If you don't answer your grant questions, I was speaking to a professional in this grant space that I know applying for much larger grants, and their statistics from the government is 50% of all applications get knocked out right at the starting block because they haven't answered the question.
Yeah, or some of the eligibility criteria they haven't met. They've spent all the time writing the grant and boom. So you must make sure.
So we did promise yesterday, when we say we mean Kevin promised in his write-up yesterday that we were going to say who's in, who's out, and so let's start with that, okay? So if you're a small business, you have less than 20 people on your employee, okay? What the government means, less than 20 people, it's not full-time equivalents. If you're running a cafe and you've got 23 people on your payroll, unfortunately, you've got 23 people and you don't qualify.
That's right.
Okay. It's really important that you would have typically less than 20 people working there on a typical week. Okay,
Yeah.
so less than 20 people. You can't have a payroll of more than $1.3 million because then you would have qualified for a whole lot of other stuff earlier on. And so it's not for you.
And then you're not a small business.
Well, technically, you could have a payroll of $1.3 million and have less than 20 employees. The average small business has 2.2 employees. Now, I want to be the average small business that has a payroll of more than $1.3 million between our 2.2 employees. That would be okay.
Absolutely.
Just saying. I'm not, though. Everyone out there thinking that I'm a benevolent billionaire, it's not true. So yeah, typically if you've got a payroll of $1.3 million, you're going to have a turnover well in excess of $2 million. So you're not going to be there, but it specifically says that you must have at least $75,000 of income last financial year. Look, the reason the government's saying this is because there's the GST cutoff. Okay. And so at the moment they're saying, hey, we're going to look after the people who are paying GST because when we get GST back, that's our return on investment. So if we're supporting businesses that are paying GST, then that's going to be worthy of our investment right now. If you have that, there is still a fight to be had. Don't feel yet that we've given up. Okay. But for us to take that fight, we need a fighting fund. And I'll talk about how we can help look after that in a completely different scenario. If you don't have 75,000, unfortunately, this isn't the opportunity for you. That doesn't mean there aren't other opportunities. I'm talking to members already about different opportunities for other businesses and people that miss out on this particular grant because, by my calculation, with 438,000 small businesses in Queensland, according to the government's stats, employing almost 1 million people, I believe that when I look at the Australian government statistics, they have 25% of businesses are under $25,000. Another 34% are between 50 and 200,000. So I'm going to say about half of them will be in this particular grant. And then there's another 34% between 200,000 and 2 million, which are the rest of this grant, right? So that leaves about 50% of small business, about 220,000. According to the Australian government, 60% of businesses have applied in some way, shape or form for JobKeeper. Okay, so if we look at 60% of our 220,000, then all of a sudden we come down to about 140,000. Yeah. And in speaking to our members yesterday, 60% of people were quite keen to look at this particular grant application. That left us with about 90,000 applications going in.
Yeah.
For $100 million.
10,000 applications.
Look, it says 10,000 applications, but that's if everybody asks for $10,000. And I know a lot of people who won't ask for $10,000 because they got a program that's going to be $6,000 or whatever. So we might end up with 12 to 15,000 people being helped. So it is time is of the essence. And that was the reason I was going through those numbers. Don't get confused about the numbers. Absolutely understand that you need to do something about this right now. Here at Bristol Small Business, we've been talking about if you were to start your business tomorrow, what would you do differently? This is the grant for that.
100%.
And the story that you tell is absolutely critical. So that covers who misses out, who's involved, who misses out. What's it to be used for? That's really critical. And if you could entertain the crowd for 1 second while I turn my back and use a flip chart.
Yeah. So the key, 4 key areas.
Really I've got to say.
4 key areas we're going to be focusing on to help small businesses in Queensland. So the first one being around the digital tech side. But
you're starting there. Okay. Let's start at the bottom of the list. Let's start at the top of the list. The government have given us a list and they put stuff up the top, and I believe they put stuff up the top for a reason, okay? I don't know. I just think that people put important stuff up the top.
I was reading your screen.
So, you see, because it's backwards. So I want to start over here, right? So financial legal professional, financial legal professional. So if you accounting advice, legal advice, look, now this is strategic advice. It's not, you can't go and get an accountant to do last year's tax return. That won't be accepted.
But it's any additional costs around if they've been incurred since the 23rd of March. So if the accountant has been helping you with prepare JobKeeper and your cash flow boost, we could claim that.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't think of that one, but it will be, and that would be a strategic use of your accountant because it's out of the ordinary. It's there to help you achieve stuff. So here's why I talk to people smarter than me. They come up with the bloody obvious that I go, oh, missed that.
Yeah.
Great to speak to. It is great to speak to professionals. So yeah, absolutely. So accounting, legal. Professional advice could even be in the HR side of things if you've been engaging an HR professional in relation to your JobKeeper things, but also in relation to what you're going to need to do in the future, because that's going to be absolutely critical too.
Yeah, absolutely. To make your business more, as we said, sustainable and resilient.
Absolutely. So that's one. How can you be more flexible? Do you need advice from any of those people? Number one. Number two, strategic planning, financial counselling, business coaching, aligned to business development, diversification. So it really is about, if you're getting some help, some strategic help about how you can have a more diversified business that lowers your risks, improve your resilience, gives you counter-cyclical products and services so that you're in a better shape, whether we're all allowed out free to roam the countryside or whether we're all locked down. Because remember, the government's still quite scared that we could get locked down again.
Correct. Yeah. Plus with, like we said, having a plan and a strategic plan is to hold you more accountable and have a roadmap to get you back on track.
It is. So it's that short term, here's my action plan that I need to do, and that's going to give me the strategic plan further down the track. You do get 6 months for these services to be provided, for up to 6 months. So if you're getting, if you are getting some coaching and there's a lot of work around mindset and resilience on that front, then absolutely, that's going to take 6 months. For that to occur. It's, we're working with parts of the brain that isn't a 1 + 1 = 2. Great, I know that now. It's a trial and error process. So of resilience building and emotional intelligence. We'll talk about those things a whole nother day. So it's around that strategic planning stuff. Then the third thing is about marketing communication.
Yeah, which is a really good one in terms of, if you have had a retail shop and you haven't been online, it's a case of developing an online presence, and you've possibly incurred those costs since the 23rd of March. So potentially you could claim those costs for setting an online shop and having online presence, so that you can sell from retail and online going forward.
Absolutely. But even if you're in a professional services organisation that has, needs to market differently, needs to interact with your client differently, providing that resilience so that, but also they are looking for you to be aspirational and where your business can be with this. And you may have had a coaching business that was just local here in Brisbane. And this could be an opportunity for you to establish a much broader platform where you can deliver services to a much greater audience. And so the setup of that would be included, but also your marketing platform. You may be looking at putting online education and that sort of stuff. So, those sort of different projects could be justified in this scenario.
Yeah. So instead of having that one, absolutely. Instead of having that one-to-one approach, I mean, people now in the last 2 months have become used to Zoom. It's part of our nature now, part of our DNA, and you can go 1 to 200 and potentially increase your turnover.
I'm also just going to say that if you've got Office 365, you've already got your Zoom application paid for within Office 3. Well, you don't use Office 365, use Zoom Teams, but that's just a whole other thing.
Yeah.
We have started to just talk about Zoom all the time, where there are other alternatives which are really cool and that you may be paying for already. So think about that. So it really is about looking at the changing business practices, and all those different discussions that we had just there was all about where you were going to start with technical stuff. I even pointed to the right place, not even looking at it. That was pretty cool. Sometimes I surprise myself. The digital technology and strategy development. Look, I would be looking in here for things around automation and integration, how you can more smoothly run your business so that if there is a hiccup in the outside world, you can still deliver more seamlessly to your clients.
Yeah. And it's got less reliance on staff, less reliance as you as the owner, and you can actually grow the business rather than being focused in the business.
However, when he said less reliance on staff, he meant less reliance on staff to be doing all the little boring bits, because this grant is there to increase employment.
100%. So they can do other tasks to grow the business. It's not about a case of automating and outsourcing.
In your discussion, do not talk about cutting staff costs. They won't like that. You won't get the grant.
100%. It's about increasing turnover and increasing employment.
Cool. So that's what it can be used for, which brings us back to my really bad spelling and where I had to write a whole nother sheet. Or alternatively, how's it going to be assessed? So how is it going to be assessed? The expert in this field.
The key is, 1, to have an ABN, and 2, to be GST registered, and please be in Queensland. Don't be in Northern New South Wales, and when you do an ABR search, you've still left the accountant's address in Sydney or wherever, because boom, you won't be approved or go through to the next stage. Some
information that I have on very good authority is 50% of grant applications get ruled out straight away because they filled out stuff wrong.
Correct.
Right? Where they say you filled out stuff wrong, what they mean is your grant wasn't compliant with the conditions of the grant, or you haven't answered the basic grant question. Okay. The basic grant question here is, how are you going to adapt your business to be more resilient, more flexible, and cater for the future, and making sure that you qualify with those 5 criteria: that you have more than $75,000 turnover last year, that you are a Queensland-based business, that you have less than 20 staff and a payroll of under 1.3 million. There's also that you can't be trading insolvent and that sort of stuff as well.
That's right.
There's a few other things there, but they're the main things. It's a Queensland business, less than 20 staff, over $75,000.
And the key is to show through independent third-party advice that you have experienced significant downturn in turnover, a bit like JobKeeper. So if you do qualify for JobKeeper, you should stand a chance of accessing this grant.
Yeah, it does talk about significant hardship. The significant hardship, it does have in the information here that a 30% downturn in revenue will show significant hardship. So if you've been able to prove to the ATO that you've had that to get JobKeeper, you should be able to prove to the Queensland government that you have too, although that can't be absolutely relied upon, of course. They're independent bodies and they can do as they please.
And also the key is to have a good third-party supplier. So yes. You can't put an application and create yourself an invoice and attach it for yourself. You need a good third-party supplier in one of those 4 key areas that we highlighted.
Your wife's invoice won't be included either. Won't work. Your brother or brother-in-law, they're not going to view that nicely. It needs to be an arm's length transaction from an independent person. They actually mention those sort of situations.
Yeah. And from previous experience, they do prefer, and it's not always 100%, but they do prefer Queensland-based companies. So you need to support Queensland companies in the first instance.
And I'd be encouraging you to support local small businesses, other members of Business Small Business, of course. in doing that. Look, they do run through a, as I said earlier, they will have a checklist and bonus point system and all that sort of stuff. Nobody really knows what that's going to be made up of, but they do ask, they ask about diversity and do you have an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background?
Plus women in business is a big one.
That, women in business, disabilities, young people, seniors. I should qualify for seniors, hey?
No, it's not quite grey enough yet.
I'm nearly 55. Come on, surely. One day I'll be old enough. Cultural, linguistic diversity, or none of the above. What percentage of the business is women-owned is one of the questions that are there. So all of these different things will do that, as well as I've been saying, as soon as it was done, there is going to be a preference and bonus points awarded if you're in hospitality, fitness, tourism, and
Pubs,
something
clubs,
else. Retail was the other one that I said. Food and arts. Arts was the fourth one. So yes, there's going to be bonus points if you can show that you're in those particular areas in relation to this. That's the nitty gritty of it. Ultimately, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So you need all those things. You will need a quote that talks about the project that you're looking to do for this particular grant. That quote needs to be a quote. If you supply an estimate, you are in severe danger of that being ruled out because that's not a quote. Okay? The quote needs to explain that it is going to deliver the stuff that you have said you need in your discussion.
That's right.
These are really critical points. This is the 50% that get knocked out. When you ask for one thing and the quote comes in for something else, knocked out. The quote comes in and it's an estimate, potentially knocked out. You need to make sure that you do dot your I's and cross your T's when you're dealing with public servants because, hey, they are going to get inundated with this and they, unfortunately, are going to have to look for reasons why they can exclude people rather than looking for reasons why they can include people. They've got more than enough to include already.
Correct.
So that is the bad news. Make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. As I said earlier, I expect that they're going to get hit with around a minimum of 60,000 applications for probably 15,000 grants. They're going to accept the first 15,000 that they accept.
So you got to be in it to win it.
So you got to be in it to win it. It does mean that yes, you need to put your application together quickly, but I would also say that you need to do so with care and diligence to make sure that you don't get accidentally knocked out because you've forgotten to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. It is grants available of up to $10,000, but that doesn't mean you need to apply for $10,000. If you have a program, a project that you really like to do, and it comes in at $6,000, apply for $6,000.
But also, it must have a minimum project spend of $2,000.
Excellent point. So, hopefully, with that, we've covered. Are there any? Andrea's written some stuff saying, "Yep, the quote needs to be relevant to what needs to be done." And just like Lotto, you've got to be in it to win it. Absolutely. Look, if you're thinking, "Hey, it's not worth putting in applications for grants," I'm not going to bother. Then don't. Only put in the application if you're prepared to do the work and the research to get that done. I'm putting together a consortium of people that are going to cover these 4 areas. From Bristol Small Business, they are members of the directory. They are people that have reached out to me and that I know. And basically we're going to run a webinar tomorrow afternoon. We'll have more details. We'll put it in the feed. We'll advertise it in the group. tomorrow. So more than happy to help out with advice. We will also, from the consortium, everybody has been involved in grant writing in the past, so they will be able to help you with making sure that you don't accidentally trip over any of the potholes that are there in these particular situations. I think that's an analogy, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah. That's right.
But you don't trip yourself up anyway, because that's really serious. Now, sorry that I've been so serious today, but it is a really serious issue, so I thought I had to be. I want you guys I want as many of our membership to get this opportunity as possible, and I would love them to be using as many other members of Brisbane Small Business to be doing so. It is my goal that we're all working together. So please think about how you can use service providers within Brisbane Small Business. Think about how you can help Brisbane Small Business be stronger, so that collectively, when we need to fight the good fight, we can. Okay. If you're sitting on the sidelines going, oh yeah, it's good, Kev, you can go and fight those fights. Well, we do need the community to be banded together by more than just a Facebook group. There's one question that I keep getting asked by politicians is, well, what's your paid membership base? And that is just the directory. If you're not there, the government aren't including you in the numbers that we look after. So please think about being part of there. You can join for less than $1 a week. We're providing that value in here. The one thing I want you to do is to think about the project. I've been asking it for quite some time. Think about the project that you would do if the government was going to provide these funds. Now's the time to get your quotes together and to get them in as quickly as possible. We'll be running that webinar tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock. You'll be able basically to submit your quote pretty much straight after. So we'll be able to help you do that. So thanks very much. And because we can only see Facebook user in the comment stream, it gets really quite funny. But thanks very much, guys. Thanks for those that have watched. Good luck with this application. We'll provide as much information as we can within the community, from today through to whenever they tell us this is turned off. And then we'll talk to all those with less than 75,000 turnover about what we need to do together to try and get that 50% of the business community into the government's line of sight, because at the moment, you're right, they're missing it. Thanks very much. We will catch up with you tomorrow.
Right.
Thanks very much, Adam.
Cheers. Thanks.